There is a doorway in Buffalo, New York, that has never been adequately explained, not the building around it. That was demolished in 1902, quietly within 14 months of the Pan-American Exposition's close. But photographs of that entrance still survive in the Library of Congress archive, catalogued under a bureaucratic file number, never prominently displayed. The lintel sits at 17 feet. The decorative stonework above it is not ornamental. It is structural, and no standard account of the 1901 World's Fair has ever explained who precisely that doorway was designed to accommodate. That question has a name, and in the summer of 1901, that name was spoken aloud, once, to a crowd of approximately 400 people standing in a canvas tent on the fairground's outer perimeter. The man's name, in official records, was Fedor Andreevich Machnow. He was documented by the Imperial Russian Medical Board in 1900 as standing 8 feet and 3 inches tall, with a corresponding skeletal mass that confounded the examining physicians, who noted in a report now held in St. Petersburg's Central State Historical Archive that his bone density exceeded any patient they had previously catalogued. He was not, in their clinical language, a sick man. He was a proportionally scaled man. That distinction, small as it appears on the page, is the most uncomfortable sentence in this entire story. James Anthony Bailey, the surviving partner of Barnum and Bailey's Greatest Show on Earth, arranged Machnow's American tour in that final year before Bailey's own health declined. Bailey was a meticulous man, an archivist almost. He kept ledgers. He documented crowd sizes, revenue figures, audience reactions. Those ledgers exist, and in the entry for August 14th, 1901, Bailey's handwritten note reads, "Without elaboration, the Russian spoke to the crowd today without permission. It will not happen again." Modern endocrinology classifies Machnow's condition as acromegaly, a hypersecretion of growth hormone originating in the anterior pituitary gland. This is the textbook explanation, and it is, in isolation, a real and documented condition, but the medical literature of acromegaly describes a specific and consistent set of secondary symptoms: joint degeneration, cardiovascular insufficiency, vision impairment, a characteristic coarsening of the facial bones. Machnow's documented medical examinations. 3 separate assessments between 1899 and 1903 recorded none of these. His joints were described as supple, his cardiovascular function as strong. The examining physician in the 1900 St. Petersburg assessment, Dr. Nikolai Velansky, wrote that the patient presented as, and I quote the archive translation directly, a specimen of proportional enlargement rather than pathological distension. Proportional enlargement. That phrase did not make it into the popular press. It was noted, filed, and absorbed into the archive. Velansky's broader career included documentation of skeletal remains recovered from burial mounds in the Volga-Ural steppe region throughout the 1880s, remains that the Imperial Archaeological Commission subsequently reclassified and removed from public exhibition. The connection is circumstantial. The pattern, however, is persistent. What Machnow reportedly said to that crowd in Buffalo was this: that the buildings surrounding the fairground were not new, that he recognized the proportions, that the rooms inside them were built for people who no longer existed in the numbers they once had, and that the world his grandmother had described to him as a child in the Vitebsk region was not a fairy tale, but a geography. The structure Machnow stood beneath in Buffalo was not unique. 2 years earlier, at the 1893 Columbian Exposition in Chicago, the Manufacturers and Liberal Arts Building presented entrance archways whose internal clearance was measured by the supervising architect, Charles B. Atwood, at 16 feet and 4 inches, a dimension his own correspondence describes as inherited from the original site survey, not chosen for aesthetic effect, The building was demolished in 1894. Its demolition was funded within 6 months of the fair's closure, faster than any other structure on the grounds. Travel east across 11 time zones to Samarkand, in present-day Uzbekistan, and the Shah-e-Zinda necropolis presents a funerary corridor whose entrance archways, documented in detail by the Russian Imperial Archaeological Commission survey of 1885, maintain a consistent internal height of 15 feet across 14 separate chambers spanning 4 distinct construction periods between the 11th and 15th centuries. The survey's lead architect, Vladimir Krestovsky, noted in his field report that this uniformity across centuries and across successive dynasties suggested not an aesthetic convention, but a functional constraint, as though every builder, regardless of era, was accommodating the same physical requirement. Travel further west to the sanctuary at Epidaurus in the Peloponnese, Greece, a site whose acoustic engineering remains, to this day, mathematically unresolved. The Propylon Gateway, surveyed in 1881 by the German Archaeological Institute, presents an entrance height of 14 feet 8 inches. The sanctuary's documented function was therapeutic. Its documented visitors, according to the stone inscriptions called the Iamata, arrived seeking cures. Its documented architecture was built, as the inscriptions record, for those who came before the physicians. The same structure, the same proportional geometry, the same anomalous clearance height, from Chicago to Samarkand to the Peloponnese, separated by ocean, by century, by civilization. That is not stylistic coincidence. That is a persistent, recurring, and so far institutionally unexamined pattern. Bailey's tent came down in September. Machnow returned to Russia. He died in 1912, survived by a wife and children of ordinary stature, which the medical literature finds unremarkable, and which the alternative record finds profoundly significant. The canvas tent was discarded. The ledgers eventually passed to a private collector, and the building with the 17-foot doorway was demolished in 1902. Its stone was repurposed, its photographs were filed. The official record of the 1901 Pan-American Exposition runs to several thousand pages. It does not once mention what a man named Machnow said to 400 people on a Tuesday afternoon in August. There is a concept in cartography called institutional inertia, the tendency of a map, once printed and distributed, to reproduce its own errors indefinitely, not because the errors are invisible, but because correcting them requires admitting that the previous version was wrong. We do not lack the measurements. The lintel heights are in the archives. The survey reports are in the libraries. The demolition orders are on file, dated and signed. What we lack is not evidence. What we lack is the institutional willingness to let the map change. Machnow is gone. Bailey is gone. Krestovsky is gone. The tents, the buildings, the expositions, all demolished, all repurposed, all quietly absorbed into a record that tells us with great calm and great confidence exactly how tall the doorways were and absolutely nothing about why. The question was never whether larger people once walked through those doorways. The question is who decided, and precisely when, that we should stop measuring them. This video is a work of speculative documentary exploration. Historical figures and locations referenced are real. Dialogue, archival citations, and newspaper accounts are dramatized reconstructions for narrative purposes. All geological and architectural claims are presented as open questions for research, not established fact.